Stan.
Present.
Carrie Bickford. Present. Larry Brand.
Present.
Scott Irby.
Present.
Andrew Wesley.
Present.
Ronald Discom.
Present.
Tim Dunham.
Is excused.
Tim Dunham has been excused. Everyone else is here.
First item of approval of the minutes of the May 22nd, 2025 meeting. We have a motion.
I move that we accept the minutes of the May 22, 2025 meeting labeled second draft as submitted.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Sorry. All right, so what we have next is a public hearing, and we'll do a public hearing for the conditional use. Then we'll do site plan. And that's going to pick up and take your. Who's here to talk about the CP Rogers LLC has applied for a site plan and conditional use permit to open a service business at 61 Main Street in the Middle Village, and the district tax map is U04 lot 22.
Kara Rogers. Happy to answer any questions that you have.
Okay.
Kara Rogers.
Thank you.
We didn't know what
What do
you
you know or what do you
you
not
just take maybe 1 minute, just describe to everyone here what
Okay.
you're doing.
Yeah, so I've been a resident of Topsham for 10 years. I have been running a business down the street, 61 at 19 Main Street. I've been there for 5 years. Previous to that, I was in Fort Ambrose for 2 years. So I'm a nurse, skincare business. And I recently in March purchased 61 Main Street, to everything. It is two units residential, and we propose to change the first floor to commercial, so that I could hopefully move my business on 19 Main Street to 61 Main Street and own the building.
Okay,
You're entering more.
so we have, I assume everyone's had a chance to read the conditional use information. Does anyone have any questions?
Questions, just, I think, it is a conditional use for services in this area, but it's a perfect use, and it would be great to see that building reused and keeping that second floor as residential.
Yes.
I think that's what our goal is for Main Street. So,
They can get their skin taken care of, and next door and get ice cream.
That's the plan, right?
To get more skin to get taken care of.
That's right.
Okay, any staff comments basically in support of this?
Yep.
Okay.
That didn't have a problem with this.
Conditional first, and then.
Yeah.
So we're doing conditional, right? Any questions over here?
Nope.
All right.
Sorry. The
Oh,
conditional
wait,
use.
wait,
Oh, what's that question?
I need to.
Sorry,
So
I'm jumping in.
if there are no more questions, I'm gonna open up the floor. Goodbye. Open up the floor for a public hearing for the conditional use hearing for explained by Kara. Is there anyone who would like to say anything, ask any questions, or make any statements? I'll ask one more time. Anyone with any comments, questions, or concerns that would like to be expressed? If not, I'm going to close the conditional use hearing. Now you're.
I would like to make a motion. I move that the conditional use permit application submitted by CP Rogers LLC is in compliance with Chapter 225, Section 67, conditional use standards, and is approved with the recommended findings identified in the staff memo dated June 12, 2025.
Second.
This is the one you're referring to, right?
Patty, keep in mind there's a typo on the memo
The year.
because it says 2025. It doesn't say 2025.
It doesn't matter what it says. I said.
You said 2025. Right.
Oh, okay.
Scott said it correct.
All right,
Thank you.
so did you catch who seconded it?
I did, Carrie did.
Carrie did.
Good job.
All right, so we have a motion and a second, any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? All right. All right, so we're done with conditional use. We will not need to open up for another public hearing, but we do now need to go through the site plan.
Is this public hearing also?
Yes.
You do need to open up because you closed it after nobody spoke and then he made the motion after you closed and you gotta open it for it.
No.
No, because this one's site plan, so it doesn't apply.
Okay.
We concluded the conditional use, but thanks for.
Thank you.
So I think the first thing here is everyone had a chance to look through this application. And if so, do we have a motion that the material is completely acceptable?
Planning board concur with staff that the appropriate materials have been submitted for the site plan application. The application is complete such that the board may proceed with subsequent review and identification of any further actions or information which may be required.
Second.
All right, so we have a first and a second, any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? So that's passed. So now, do you have anything additional you'd like to say about the site plan or
No, I just, just as this proceeds, what would be the next steps? Like, we did get an email from Josh, just kind of outlining a bunch of things, but just in clear terms, you know, what do we do next?
okay. I'll let them tell you after this. So I guess, to the board, is anybody on the board, again, you have seen that there are 4 waivers requested. So is there any questions or? With
I do not have any issues with the waivers.
No, I just want to make sure that Ms. Rogers has seen the conditions that are in the memo.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't fully understand all of them, but that's what I was just asking to.
Well,
For the most part.
when you come up to the mic, please.
Sure. Did you have any specific questions? Oh,
No, I just like what the steps of us from the.
oh, like after, like
Yeah,
what happens
just
after this?
yeah.
Sure. So after the meeting today, I'll follow up with a notice of decision,
Okay.
depending on what's said here today, and then I'll let you know what the next steps are.
Okay.
I'll stay in touch.
Okay,
We won't just leave you hanging after planning board.
yeah, no, it's just like talking about fees and things like that. And I just.
Yep.
Okay.
Well, I'll get you all
Okay.
filled in and let you know.
But again, to Larry's point, that's back towards page 13, where there's standard conditions of approval, right? So
Yeah.
that's what Larry was just making sure you had read those and understood what those. were.
Yes, I do understand I mean, we have our bank has said that he would write a note or whatever that was.
The performance guarantee for the landscape. Yep.
Yeah. That all, you know, expected or other than that.
Yeah, and typically, you know, unless you have any questions I can answer any questions you have on that. But otherwise, after the planning board, there would be follow up with the notice of decision, and then we'd stay in communication just to make sure that all of those things to help you get all those things checked off. That way, you could then once those are checked off, and then we get the signature.
Still don't start, still don't do anything.
Yeah, not until the conditions have been fulfilled. So it's like the approval is conditioned on those things being fulfilled. And once those things are fulfilled, then we would get the planning board to sign the plans. Once the plans have been signed, then any approval that may be given today would become official, and then you could then get asked for.
So there are going to be some things that we have to complete additionally before approval.
Yes, and those are the things that were specifically mentioned in the conditions of approval, and they do say specifically which ones would be, yeah, like, for example, the pre-construction meeting, which would be held prior to site work commencing.
Right, that's stuff that I was just hoping that we could just discuss. I guess I didn't know about that. So you
Yep.
think all of those things would happen
After, yeah.
after?
They'd happen after the planning board, and then just prior to signature, plan
Okay,
signature.
So we have the meeting, then there will be things that we do, then there will be signature.
Yes, correct.
But the reason Larry was asking, that's why we're sort of,
Don't make sure you didn't have any surprises.
we're sort of stepping back, is these are the conditions that will go into the motion, which we will allow. The motion, right? To the extent, if you have questions on, we want to make sure you understood what the conditions were, so that, you know, we tell you it's approved, it's based on these conditions, then you get surprised because you understand.
I mean, for the most part, I think I understand what the conditions are, but it's all kind of, you know, this approval is conditioned on the applicant receiving all necessary federal, state, and local approvals. And hopefully, I guess, I don't know, it's conditioned on the applicant receiving necessary approvals from public and private utilities. I think.
Yeah.
I don't know the answer to these. Those
Yep,
things,
and those are the standard conditions. Those conditions, like, for example, the ones that you just brought up,
but
like,
once prior to planning board, the applicant shall furnish the town performance guarantee, which. Yeah.
which,
He said, once you tell them that now, we'll have that.
yep,
And then the applicant will provide funds in escrow to recover expenses of erosion control inspections. I guess I would be told what those are.
Yep.
Okay, I'm just making sure that we're on the same page.
yeah, absolutely,
Okay.
yeah, no problem.
Pre-construction meeting, so that would be with whoever's gonna complete the work.
Yep.
And the engineer who had the comments.
Yes, exactly. Yep, and the pre-construction meeting, it's a quick meeting that's held between the town and
Yep.
whoever's whoever's contracting with you, and
Yep.
it's a 1 hour meeting.
Okay. So anything, that's what you were talking about?
Yes.
Okay, yes, I mean, I
Yeah.
think for the most part, and then it says, the dust emissions and things like that, that's just kind of covered anytime you're doing construction.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
It's just
okay.
making sure that dust isn't going outside of your property.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's.
So we, as part of our process, we make findings as far as has this provision of the ordinance been satisfied?
Yep.
And so, we make those findings.
Yep.
And it takes care of actually some of the same conditions. There's specific conditions that I want to make sure.
Yeah, no, I think for the most part, I understand those.
Okay. That's good. Thank
So,
you. So,
no, did you want to do a discussion about the waivers first, and then do a discussion about the site plan? Yeah. My feeling on the waivers is matches what the staff says, but I think it's always good to throw them out there and the public. One of the waivers is from the full perimeter survey. And since you guys did do a survey between Dairy Green, which is the key.
Yeah.
That's sort of the goal of that ordinance. And the other one was the landscape plan to include type size of existing trees, larger trees. You guys aren't taking it down, so you would that ordinance also. The minimum apartment height of 24 feet is the other waiver. That's the condition. Understand the limit of traffic that's going to be there. For the staff, that makes sense. And then the last one. Met the engineers.
okay. Good.
But obviously, maybe a motion.
You do that too.
This more discussion.
Any
Well,
further
did you
questions?
make your
discussion?
motion? Or are we just discussing first? I have no discussion.
Well, I move that the requested waivers for 175, 5A4, the full perimeter survey be provided. 175, 10A2A, The landscape plan includes a type of trees of 4-inch caliber grade. 225.7E6C requiring a minimum parking aisle of 24 feet for two-way traffic and the 34D 2B, which would require the applicant to provide drainage maintenance agreement with the town, be approved in accordance with staff memo dated June 12, 2025.
Second.
Any further discussion or questions? Seeing none, all in favor? We have final site plan review. Is there anything more people want to discuss on it?
Got the lighting plan.
I wasn't gonna bring that up.
I got one question about that.
Yes.
And it has to do with the wall mount.
Yeah. Okay.
There it is. The lighting plan itself looks great.
Okay.
My concern about the 18-foot high wall mount light is it going to be just on during business hours? And or is it going to be like a motion detector so it goes off for the office period? Just because
Yeah.
you have fences back there, but that 18-foot light is going to be seen.
I don't think it need, I was thinking of that, if it needed to be on like a timer, maybe to just shut off after business hours, it does have that capability. Because I don't, most of the time we're only working on daylight hours except for in winter.
It's more of a recommendation.
Yes, shut it off. Yep, by 7 p.m. Yep. Okay.
That's it.
Anything else? No? Suggestion motion number 3.
Yes. I move that the final site plan review issued for 61 Main Street, tax map U04-522, having satisfied the applicable standards of the site plan review ordinance, chapter 175, the zoning ordinance, chapter 225, is approved with staff recommended conditions and findings identified in staff memo dated June 12, 2020.
I will second that motion.
Okay, so any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
Scott, can you take it from here? And then after you're done, go ahead and adjourn to workshop. And then we'll pick back up the workshop.
I can't connect. That link. Are you the Zoom link?
Thank you. Take care.
Let's see. We are having a slight technical difficulty with the owl. And then it seems like maybe the link. Yeah. Yeah. So let me
Roundabout.
Thanks for being patient. That's your old hand. So.
no, I can get it. I'm
Very short.
yeah. It's on its way. All right, just shot it over to you. Hopefully the updated link is. The one that the one in the email. Oh, I just sent you one in the email. Yeah. I don't know. My laptop is recording. Hopefully it's clear now. Yeah. All right.
The next up on the agenda is site plan review. The Seacoast Management Company is proposing phase 4D of the Haven Creek Community District, including construction of a 2-story, 48-unit system building with 54 space parking lot, as well as realignment of this connection with Stratford Bedford Road. That's map 4, lot 17.
Hi there, my name is Chris Blander. We're here representing Town of Green, phase 4D of the development. We were here a couple weeks ago and I'm submitting this presentation. They're exactly the same, so we'll go through it relatively quick. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer that. But basically, this is phase 4D, the assisted living facility, a 48-unit building on 2 stories. It will include construction of Audubon Way as part of that project. It was approved originally back in 2019. It's been approved several times since then. This is just the overall master plan for the project. The assisted living is in the beige area on the left side. I can see the big building. This is the subdivision plan. This plan has been approved and recorded. It's my understanding that subdivision doesn't expire for another year, so next year we'll have to come back. This is just a blown up view of the area. Basically, you see Audubon Road in the center of the sheet. The blue outline of blue shaded building is the building assisted living. Bigger view of that same thing. Again, this is the same thing we saw a couple weeks ago. I did update this plan to include a 20-foot fire lane with fighting. This is a sneak peek of a future development that will come back and see you. Basically, the right-hand side of the building, that's what we're approving today. The left-hand side will be some future apartments that we'll have that we'll submit to Sunday. This is basically Audubon Road, the construction plans. We'll go through it pretty quick. Several sheets worth. Tom Saucer had a couple comments with regards to the culvert that's there, the existing 48-inch culvert. Last time he wanted us to inspect it just to see if there's any wear and tear. Is a corrugated metal pipe. It was put in 15 to 20 years ago now. So it may be his life cycle may be ending, so to speak. So what we'll do prior to construction is we'll inspect the culvert, and in the event that there's signs of failure, we'll replace it as part of it. So I don't know how Tom wants to handle that, whether that's a condition to add on to it. I'm just not sure. But we'll add notes to the plan to say inspect and replace if required. This from the paved area, the gray shade to the right-hand side will upgrade that section of gravel road that connects to Tedford Road as required to maintain emergency access. This is the end of the road. You can see the existing road that's there. The shaded pink area is what we're expanding the gravel temporarily. And when we actually build the road, we're gonna shift up the hill about 50 feet. The building, what it looks like, doesn't change. And at this point, I'll answer the question.
Chris, any questions from the board? No questions. Read any public hearing for this?
No.
I move that the planning board concur with the staff that the Highland Green Phase 4D site plan application materials have been submitted, and the application is complete, such that the board may proceed with substantive review and identification of any further action or information that may be required from the applicant.
I'll second it.
So it's been moved and seconded. All in favor? We have a couple of waivers that were requested. This was requested last time also, and it's 175 parking to safety reasons. And also that additional space standards. More flow of so, folks have questions on the two waivers. Motion.
I'm getting there. Oh, no.
I move that the requested waivers for 175-10 and 175-12 be approved in accordance with the staff note of June 12, 2020.
Second that motion.
All right, moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Any questions on the site plan itself? One question I did have. Oh,
Sorry. I just already make a motion.
Very sorry. I had a question with the last. Does it need to say specific? I assume the culvert is included in meeting the level of satisfaction for the chief. Right? I mean,
So-
the culvert's not looking good.
And what we,
Well,
true-
I think there's two separate questions there. The culvert itself is part of the road reconstruction project.
Yeah.
After that road is built and you occupy the assisted living, we're still gonna maintain the rest of that road
Mhm.
until we finish it. So that's the maintenance requirement.
Yeah.
I think.
Okay, so two separate. So we need to have that in there of the culvert. Where
And I
all set.
would-
I think the culvert. I mean, it can't hurt to add the culvert into there. I was thinking like culvert shall be inspected and replaced as required at the discretion of the town's peer review engineer.
Okay, do that as part of the, like a C under 11.
Yeah, exactly.
I was thinking, if the culvert fails or has a problem, then we violated the condition to make it.
Right. Yep.
I don't have a problem with gas being.
Mhm.
Yeah, I just want to put the culvert before I pay it. So we'll inspect it before we go down. And take it out of it.
Literally before you go.
But it's the culvert down at the, it's the culvert at the end.
No,
On Tedford.
culvert, the big culvert. And it's showing signs of rust.
Yeah.
It's still in good shape, but he asked for us to inspect it. So I inspected it 3 years ago
Yeah.
and got a letter for that.
Yeah.
But now it's 3 years older.
Yeah.
So he's asking for a new inspection, which is fine.
Yeah.
But if this isn't gonna be built this year, let's say I'll inspect it
Before you
Wow.
do the road.
while we're doing the road, because that'll be timely enough to say that's when we need to replace it, it's done.
I misunderstood. I thought it was down towards the end of Tedford, end of the road
There's
towards
a
Tedford.
small culvert crossing
There.
and all related to the 3%, 4% coming in.
Yeah.
I can make it 3% if I change the culvert, basically.
Okay. All right. Sorry about that question. Any other questions or
Totally legitimate.
or a motion?
I'll do a motion.
Here we go.
I move final site plan review application for Highland Green Phase 4D, tax map R04, lot 17A-1. Meets the applicable standards in the site plan review ordinance, chapter 175, and the zoning ordinance, chapter 225, and is approved with the staff recommended conditions and findings identified in the staff memo dated June 12, 2025. I'll second that.
Moved and seconded.
Thank you.
And any discussion? All in favor? Show unanimous. All right. We'll move on to the next. Item F is site plan and subdivision. Final for both. Seacoast Management Company is proposing an amendment to the site plan and subdivision for Phase 4C, the Highland Green Retirement Community. The amendment would add 9 new units to the previously approved plan, tax map R04, lots 17A4, 17A10, and 17A18.
Thank you. This is Highland Green as well. Phase 4, A through C, this is the quarry area. We initially had 48 units approved with a number of road and spurs off of the Green Circle. We're proposing to add 9 new cottages to that area. It includes adding about 50 feet of road to J Drive, and basically shoved it to the right a little bit to try to get a couple more units out of it. Couple of the units on the eyebrow type of roads, we had 3 units initially on those roads with 2-car driveways. We took the 2-car driveways out, and now we have 1-car driveways, and we added the unit on that road. So that's kind of how we got to where we are at this point. This is the subdivision plan. Basically, the surveyor is going to add the 9 units onto this plan, and we'll get it re-recorded. There's some pictures of the quarry area. This is the stockpile quarry area. It's been a processing area for, I don't know, 10 years now. At this point, they need to move out of this area and build Evergreen Circle. We built Phase 4A already. We built 4B already. And really the final phase is what we're here for, is 4C. And in 4C, we added the 9 units. These are just typical cottage type units that we have. This is the existing gravel road passing through the quarry area. That needs to be maintained as emergency access as required by the town. So when we shut this down, the other road's got to be built. So they got to maintain that access in perpetuity until the Evergreen Circle is completed. So that's all part of that process in this phase. This is the phase that we're working on, Phase 4C. They've roughed in Evergreen Circle. They've got some utilities in the ground at this point, but now we're holding off until we get this thing approved. This is the last unit on the right on Marble Lane, just beyond the pavement where we're extending the new phase, and it's just a stormwater outlet on the picture on the left, and a unit on the right. This is a picture of Evergreen Circle, the slope heading down, the path you see between the snow fence, that's a golf cart path. And obviously the road is going to be on this side of the golf cart. That makes sense to me. Yeah, that's This is the bridge that's there, currently there, it's connecting the golf hole to the next hole, and we'll ride along the road and then back down into the woods to get to the hole. basically. This is the overall plan. I did red cloud the units we added, so you can see where they are. There's basically, we added the two units next to the eyebrows. We added 4 units along the golf hole 6, and we had 2 units up by the old quarry. They're at. No real new roads are required. We're still maintaining the roads that are there. This is phase 4B, Marble Lane. The road is built. This is phase 4C. I just mentioned that we originally had 3 units there. Now we have 4. Quite slumped today. This is the eyebrow on the other side of Evergreen Circle with the 4th unit. This is Jade Drive. This is really the road that changed the most. Basically, I just shifted it over towards the pond a little bit to try to get it off the quarry so I can add 2 units on the left-hand side. In this plan coming up, we'll show you. Last 2 units on the top of the sheet are the new ones we're adding. Just another view of that street. The rest of these plans are basically Evergreen Circle roadway type construction plans. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have at this point, but basically that's the gist of what we're changing.
Any questions?
I have a quick question. So is it higher demand, the reason that it was changed from 3 to 4?
Sorry, I'm
So
saying.
like, you had 3 units there, but now we have 4 because there's higher demand for them?
No, initially, phase 3 had like 60 cottages to help pay for the infrastructure. In this particular phase, we had 48 cottages, but we had roughly the same infrastructure because we had a complete Evergreen Circle. So the unit per unit count was higher than anticipated in this area. So we're adding the units to kind of offset that and try to balance it better.
Okay.
So you aren't squeezing the unit in between the units that are already there. You're just
No, I made a couple.
on the ground already there.
Yeah, I made a couple decisions about restricting the size of a couple of units to add the 2 units on the eyebrow.
Right.
Instead of double garages, they'll have single car garages, which is okay. I can have a little bit more pavement so they can have one car park with a driveway and 1 car park in the garage if they wish.
Okay. But you aren't squeezing a unit in between somebody's house.
No.
Cottages were already
There's still the same spacing that I had before.
Yeah.
I do have a couple, well, at least one question. And it comes up because you were showing that the golf cart. I hadn't really seen that in the plan before, but with adding those 2 units at the end of, this is the road that you ended up having to extend a little bit
J Drive.
to the north. Is that golf cart that is shown on the map that is kind of in the conservation land? Is that a new space for that? Or did it shift because you added those 2 and lengthened the road?
The end of the road doesn't impact the golf cart path. And moving it over didn't impede or interrupt that. Well, I didn't have to move the cart path at all. It's there.
It's there.
Existing.
And it's existing, okay. I just, this one that John left up here that I hadn't seen before. It just shows it into the conservation land. I didn't know if you had to, that's existing.
Yes.
It didn't have to be moved, okay.
Anyone want to make motion number 1? Yeah.
No res-
I move that the planning board concurs with staff that the Highland Green Phase 4AC site plan application materials have been submitted and the application is complete such that the board may proceed with the substantive review and identification of any further action or information which may be required from the applicant.
I'll second that. Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Unanimous? No waivers on this one. Any other questions for Chris about the site plan?
What's happening with the quarry, Chris?
The main quarry will remain, basically. There was a smaller quarry in the back that we filled in. We had a lot of excess fill on site.
But the main quarry
Main
stays.
quarry will
You certainly showed a lot of site work happening with prepping, but none of the buildings have gone in yet.
No.
On this
They still
phase.
gonna blast. They're
Yeah,
still gonna
blast.
do a lot of work before they can
Yeah.
they gotta move out of the area to build Evergreen Circle before they can really
Go back
start
to it.
building houses.
Is there gonna be blasting?
Of course.
Of course.
So they've actually done a great job out there. They've taken down all the grade to ledge. So now we know what's there, so they can drill it, blast it, and use it for gravel and roads.
So you'll be back for the blasting.
Maybe will be, yes.
Somebody will.
I usually let them do it.
All right, any other comments? Entertain a motion?
Sure.
No?
I move the application for subdivision amendment of Highland Green phase.
No,
Oh,
No,
wrong one?
wrong one.
Oh, I thought that was.
I'm on the right one.
okay.
Go ahead.
I move the final site plan review application for Highland Green Phase 4AC, tax map R4, lot 17A-4, 17A-10, 17A-18, meets the applicable standards in the site plan review ordinance, chapter 175, and the zoning ordinance, chapter 225, and is approved with the staff recommended conditions and findings identified in the staff memo dated June 12, 2025.
I'll second that. So,
That was-
moved and seconded. Any discussion?
No, that was the one I was reading.
Well, it's the same, except one says site plan, one says subdivision, but everything else is the same.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, any discussion?
No.
All right, all in favor? So unanimous? All right, now I'll entertain a motion for the subdivision amendment, which is all the same material.
The only thing is that
Oh, we have to do a public hearing.
And you have to find it complete.
and the conflict investigation.
For that one too?
Yeah.
Oh. You had to bring your intern here today to see us.
It's a whole experience.
All right, so the next, so it's not really listed as a separate thing here, and that's what screwed me up, but Don mentioned this at the beginning. So now we're gonna do the public hearing for the subdivision for Seacoast Management Company proposing amendment to the subdivision for phase 4 of Highland Green Retirement Community, and amendment which add the 9 units to the previously approved plan, tax map R04 lot 17A4, 17A10, 17A18.
First motion first.
Yes, that would be great.
I move the planning board concur with staff that the Highland Green Phase 4A-C site plan application materials have been submitted.
Subdivision.
I know, that's what I'm.
I'm on the subdivision
I'm
amendment now.
confused.
Now,
Yeah, it's a site plan.
okay,
Subdivision.
subdivision application materials have been submitted, and the application is complete such that the board may proceed with substantive review and identification of any further action or information which may be required from the applicant. Second that.
Moved and seconded. All in favor? Yeah. All right, now, do we have any questions for the applicant for the subdivision plan from the board? All right, I'll open up the public hearing. Any questions from the public for Chris for the subdivision amendment? And online? Okay, we'll close the public hearing. Anyone have any more questions or?
Anything further from Chris?
No, motion?
Sure.
All right.
Try again.
I move that the application for subdivision amendment of Highland Green Phase 4A-C, tax map R4, lot 17A-4, 17A-10, and 17A-18 meets the applicable standards in the subdivision ordinance, chapter 191, and the zoning ordinance, chapter 225, and is approved with the staff recommended conditions and findings identified in the staff memo dated June 12th, 2025.
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Show unanimous.
Thank you very much.
And I'll entertain a motion.
Move to adjourn and move to workshop.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor? All right. We are adjourned. Thanks, Chris. We'll see you in a year for the subdivision extension.
It'll be site plan then.
That's okay. It's sketch.
You sound like me.
Sure. Yeah, I didn't think so. It came unplugged. You have to unscrew this. It came unplugged. Yeah.
Josh, can I give you that to take upstairs just to be quiet?
Take care.
Do you want to come to a little table up here? We're at the end. We can sit at the end. No, it stays on top.
I'm sorry?
It stays on top.
Yes. We're stepping in holes. Holy.
I worry about, I feel like that's the one.
Yeah. Stepping in the hole.
You're welcome.
That's a good way to start here. You can all.
Oh, there. Okay.
Yeah, that should bring it up.
Yeah.
There's an icon on everyone's iPad that says recode, and you can look at the full draft there. If anyone would really like a paper copy, the town is willing to pay for those to be printed. But I didn't want to do them prior to someone letting me know that they wanted them. So if anyone feels that that would be helpful for them as we move through reviewing this large document, please let me know and we can do that. I just, tonight was some of the smaller chapters, so I didn't ask beforehand and figured I would ask at this meeting.
I would like to.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's easier to make notes than it is on.
I've got a paper copy here, so no judgment from you.
Yeah. I'll do the same. The 3-hole punch would be nice too.
Yes.
You
Yeah,
want to take it?
yeah.
I was gonna say no, but just because I'm gonna probably end up printing it off the
we can do
chapters
it.
myself, but I might as well do it.
I have gotten permission from the town manager for you guys to get copies.
Yeah.
It's so much easier.
Do you want one?
Yeah. Take it.
All around.
Printed copy for everyone?
Russell throw one for Tim too.
Yeah.
I'll email Tim, but I'm sure he'll say yes.
Copies.
I'm just writing in parentheses, everyone.
Yeah.
Though Don has one because he did request one prior to this meeting. So, hello, everyone. It's nice to see you all again. I know it's been a little while and I appreciate your patience through this process. I needed some time to get up to speed on everything. And then, as you know, last year we had the attorney and the codes officer review the code, and the attorney had some pretty substantive comments. So we felt that it was better to wait for his comments to be introduced for you guys to start really reviewing it. So we're there. We got this, and
I have sent you a preliminary proposed schedule of how we could get through these. I do expect us to discuss that tonight, as well as kind of just an overview of what we're gonna do for reviewing these, and how I intend to write my memos and stuff. Does anyone have any questions off the bat?
So please do, but basically, at least the way you put it out here, we're reviewing different sections at planning board meetings, and this is your proposed schedule. After this, how are we doing the public hearing?
So you would do these workshops to review it, and I would expect I already know that there's some changes that will need to occur, and I would expect there to be some based on what you guys review, because you didn't finish conditional use last time. You kind of said, we'll look at that again. So you would do these workshops. We would get the consultants to do a final draft with all of the comments that come out of these workshops. It would then come back to you to review, I think, in one lump sum to say, yes, this looks like what we agreed upon at these workshops. And then we would schedule a public hearing. That's how I would see it moving forward.
Okay. Are we gonna get? Will we then have to wait for another full draft? Or can we get at least a look at, we made changes to these? And everybody kind of agrees, so we can move on to the next section. We're not gonna do that.
Sorry, I don't, I may not understand.
No, and again, it's,
Do we get a revised, I think what Don's saying, correct me if I'm wrong,
Yeah.
but do we finish, let's say, chapter 1, we'd say, okay, we want to change this. Do we then see chapter 1 revised? Or do we wait until after we've gone through chapters 1 through 15? And then we get the full revised draft, review it all again?
It's the second one.
It's the second.
Yep. You would do everything at once and then get one full revised draft.
Yeah.
So that revised draft, how long is that gonna take to go through the second time with all the revisions? I mean, would we sit and do the whole thing?
I wouldn't expect you to do it at this level, because you guys have already seen these articles once. You went through them a year, or I guess maybe it's 2 at this point with Julie. So this, to my understanding, was you're going through each zones, and I do have them grouped in such a way so I was trying to get about the same amount of content.
okay, so what will you end up sending to the consultant?
As your comments,
Just written comments, or will it be a markup to this or something?
I would probably create a markup to the draft that I'll send to them.
See, part of my issue with doing, you wait till the end, everybody forgets what they talked about.
Oh,
Not
I'll
many
be
weeks ago.
writing
So-
up your comments from each workshop so that they're fresh
Right, then it should come back to us.
after each workshop. That may be very expensive, and I would need to discuss that.
I'm not saying to the consultant, just.
Oh, okay.
to the
Oh,
markup.
you want to see what, yes, absolutely can do that. Yep, I can create
Right.
separate, yep. How about we create a specific document that's for you guys that has your markup, so you'll have a workshop, maybe, and maybe I could put it in Google Docs, because that would be an easy way for you guys to keep the link, so we'll have the document there, and then after each workshop, I'll say, this is where people had issues, so you can
Right,
review it in
so
your free time to
While
make
it's
sure.
fresh, we just reviewed it last week or 2 weeks ago, whatever ago. At least we then look at what we reviewed and here's what's going to be incorporated. I think it'll make it a lot easier at the end to review the whole package, because we will have reviewed everything as we're going forward. Right, so
What Don is saying is that some of us are old, and it's hard to remember from one week to the next what we did.
he's not saying what I'm saying a lot tonight, right? But
No, I think-
he is right on target there, right?
I think it's a great idea. I mean, this is such a huge project. I struggle somewhat to keep it all.
But-
So I actually think this is a great call. So tonight, you'll let me know if you have changes to Article 1. I will upload this PDF to Google Drive, and I will put in any of those changes. I will send you a link and say, please review. At your next workshop, someone will let me know if I made any mistakes, and then we'll review the next articles.
Yeah.
Does that work for everyone?
Excellent.
Great.
Question that I have, is CPIC also reviewing this? And are we looking at a moving target?
What do you mean by that? The big target comment.
Well, let's say CPIC looks at chapter 1 and says, oh, we want to change this, this, and this. Well, that's a different target than what we see
Yes.
right here on chapter 1.
Yes, no. So CPIC is reviewing Articles 2 and 8 right now, and they will have that done prior to when you guys do it. They will come to those workshops to talk to you about those 2 articles, because those have been their articles, and to present any of their suggested changes to those articles.
CPIC is not addressing the other articles,
No.
because for a while there, CPIC was apparently expanded authority for the whole shooting match. So, but now you're limiting CPIC just to 2 and 8.
Yes.
Okay. Which I know is surprising to CPIC members.
Yeah, it was at a point where I think there was turnover in planning staff and who was taking care of it, and I feel like where we have it right now is a good way to work going forward. I'm happy to discuss that with the board if they want to change things. And I do apologize for any confusion in the past that I have caused or have not caused. I know it's a big project, and I do, as I said before, appreciate your guys' patience with it. I'm really trying to be the last planning director that works on this.
Well, we hope you are too.
It wasn't your fault, Sky, it was the intern's fault.
I mean, I am blaming her for the technical issues. Tonight, she's the only variety, so.
There's something just started, so.
She's already been very productive. I think she'll actually be coming back to show you guys a subdivision later in the summer, so she gets some good development review experience.
Well, the other thing is because we're reviewing the way we are, again, and maybe it was a crutch, but we don't have our typical red line of the existing ordinance.
Yeah, we've talked to them about it and said this is something that we've heard from multiple groups. The entire code would be redlined because it was a start from scratch, and that happened prior to these issues being brought to me. We've done our best to have them redline the different drafts, and I understand where you're coming from.
The red line of the
I know,
internal
I
draft
know.
doesn't do.
I
at least me
understand,
any good.
Don. Yeah.
I've looked at the different. Okay.
Yep.
All right, so you wanted to give an overview first, or how do you wanna do it?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. So these 2 articles I think are good, or do we want to start on the articles, or do you guys feel good with the process? Do we have any other?
No, but we'll then come back to schedule, so let's talk about
Great.
the first 2 articles.
Yes.
Where is that on here? On the,
Could we get this memo? We might. Yeah, sorry.
I just want to know, I want to be current with what we're doing. What am I opening?
That's the recode, but
You know, but which,
no, there you go there.
Yeah.
We're working on Articles 1 and 13 tonight. They're basically just the articles that set out.
You want to come over, you can share mine?
is it there?
Recode.
Okay.
After I couldn't get it to print, I Teresa finally figured out how to print it for me.
Oh, here it is. All right, I got it.
And that was an old thing too, Larry, so I mean, none of my new devices would print.
Well, I went to my laptop, so I got bigger print then, so.
And I do just want to go back to what you said, Don, about the red line. I do apologize. I had intended to have a section of the memo that addressed some big ways that these chat articles might be separate from our current code. And I had forgotten to do this with this one. I don't think there are large changes between these 2 articles since they are mostly introductory provisions and administration and enforcement, but I will try to implement that going forward.
So I'll let you introduce. I did have some kind of overarching questions going into the first one. And then I had some specifics that I just go down through. So why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, so I just wanted to start us with these ones because I think they're a good place to start in the code. They just lay out what the ordinance's legal abilities are, how it works, and, some delegation of authority. There is also, so that's Article 1, legal framework. It's only, I think,
4 pages.
4 pages, yep. And then Article 13 is only 2 pages, and this is about administration and has some stuff about the Board of Appeals in here and the code enforcement officer, as well as violations. And this document has been looked over by the town attorney. He has provided comments, and I'm providing those to you. as we move through the articles. So in your memo, there are 3 attorney comments, but none of them needed action. I just wanted you to be aware of those comments, that they will be changed as a result of his comments, but those are all the necessary ones that didn't need any decision from the town. I don't have a whole lot to say about these ones because they are just kind of short. You know, how does this chapter work? What are the rights of the people involved?
So I'll come back to my bullet comment. And neither one of these really needs a lot from that perspective, right? But what I was thinking is, you know, some type of bullets to essentially, if someone at town meeting wants to know, did you make any changes, or does this change anything? Your bullets can basically say kind of what you just said, just bulletize it a little bit. And so I just made a comment, it'd be good to have bullets per section, right? It's almost like here we'll cover.
Yep,
right?
and I do apologize. We talked
And then
about that.
the other thing is, I don't know that, I don't think it does, but does this legal framework have any, does it do anything to change the current planning board's authority for the current ordinance?
Do not believe so, because Article 13 specifically says to reference Article 40 or Chapter 41, which is the planning board's responsibilities, and those are not intended to be changed, to my understanding.
And then the other thing, within the planning board and its relationship with staff, it's been a while, but we established thresholds for what could go through staff and what needs to
Yes.
come from planning board at that threshold. Does this change anything of
No.
that? And does that need to be mentioned anywhere?
No, so that's for site plan ordinance, which is not being changed with this one. I do need to do some work to get it to reference correctly, and I would like to make updates to it, but that has to happen after recode because I don't have time for all of it. So if you're talking about the, like, if staff can review a small site change, that's in the site plan ordinance chapter
Or
175.
even, we had a threshold for the size of the building, don't ask me what that
Yes. Yep.
threshold is now. You could, staff could review it, go through the staff review process and just notify the board, right? And so I'm not sure where that's captured.
I see. I think actually, so this is something that was related to recode about that if everyone met what they needed to for like Article 2, that staff could review it, or are you referring
No,
to
I'm
the
not
existing?
referring to the new recode.
Okay,
I'm
you're-
referring to our existing.
okay,
So-
great. Yes,
and
that's in
that's-
175.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. All right, so then, and then I'll let Larry tell me whether I'm right or wrong.
Which chapter are you in right now?
I'm in chapter 1, legal framework, 1.10.9, where it talks about delegation of authority. I don't disagree with that, but typically, in anything I've ever worked, any delegation of authority has to be in writing. Right? So should that be stated in there? It needs to be in writing.
I can check with the town attorney on that.
I am not trying to be an attorney.
Happy
I
to hear
just
from him.
know that I've had to write up delegation letters before.
Just clarification, so anything underlined in red is new?
So
No, it's new to the, this whole page is new.
Okay, what's the red?
Red is a change to the change. And so that's why I said, what we're seeing here, whether it's red or blue or whatever, it's not a red line, because it's not, I shouldn't say, it is a red line. It's a red line to the original draft of this.
When you say red line though, that means new language. See, all right, I'm used to
New to
anything
the-
underlined being new language.
It's new to the 2024
Okay,
draft. And the blue stuff is new to the 2025 draft.
okay.
But the draft
is all new.
Which is why I struggle with this. right?
Yes, okay.
Because we've always had a red line of our existing ordinance,
And when you say red line, what do you mean?
just changes, corrections.
Changes,
Yeah.
okay.
We made small changes to the existing.
So basically, you need to be familiar with what is in the current ordinance and provisions, and keep that in mind while you're looking at the recode.
I would not know that.
Right, which is why I've been harping on bullets, and I apologize for.
No, that's
for that,
fine.
right?
I just, yeah.
Because I need,
There are changes.
I need someone to tell me what have we changed.
See, I would have no idea.
So, And
to be honest with you.
my comment about in writing has nothing to do with that. It's just,
Yep.
while I was reading it, I don't disagree with what's being stated there. It's just, I think it needs to be in writing. Then this,
The delegation of authority, I think that doesn't apply to us.
no, that's, this,
So it's just that
it's just, but you're right, it doesn't, right? Well, you could argue that the threshold thing is a delegation that the board is giving to the staff.
insight.
Right. All right,
Well, we don't require the planning department to do anything. They do it by, the grace of their good will.
Thank goodness.
so, and this is my realtor coming out, computation of time, right? I'm thinking where it says it's 1.20.8, right? And I'm just gonna ask that you guys just think about it and talk to the town attorney about it, but it says references to days are to calendar days, right? And I want to say bless you when you do that. But then you open the door, right, to business days. The problem with, and I'm not saying that I don't like business days. The problem with business days is we have so many different types of holidays now that nobody quite knows which are holidays, right? Because the state recognizes some holidays, the federal government recognizes some holidays. And so when they do this counting, right, you know, and all the time on a real estate contract, they say within so many business days. I can't tell you how many times people will count it out, come up with a contract date, and you ask 3 people and they came up with 3 different dates. Right? So, and classic is, I think Juneteenth. Juneteenth is coming up next week. I think that's a legal holiday, right? And so a lot of people won't count that because they think of Memorial Day and Labor Day and whatever, right? So I think if there's a way of staying away from allowing for it to go other than calendar days, I think I'd change that. That would be my recommendation. But it's not, if there's a legal reason for saying that we have to accommodate that.
It does specify town, so it's whatever, I mean, that calendar is set each year, so,
It's in our contract.
yeah.
I will check on
But
it.
is there a reason why in the recode, there has to be business days?
Yep.
There is.
No, sorry. Good question, Larry. Good question.
Okay.
And I
No.
had written that down.
I don't disagree with you, but it allows for
Yeah,
errors, right?
I mean, if you just say,
And then it would be the planning director before you that did the wrong calculation, right?
I mean, if you just say calendar days.
That's why I said, it keeps it clean.
Keeps it
and
clean.
simple. You don't have to worry about what a
business
holiday
days
is or
and-
whatever, right?
Yeah. Did they actually do business that day? Or no?
Okay,
I agree.
more substantive than that stuff is 1.40.4. And I read it a couple times, and I think this is where I read it, because that's right where I wrote my notes, but if I'm reading
John, 140.
140.4,
Uses.
Okay.
it's uses. It was either in that section or whatever, because I read it online and then I finally got this printed out. And so I made my notes here. So I don't know positively that I picked the right spot, but if I understood it right, if there's a property owner that had gone through conditional use like we just did today, right? And this zoning kicks in and it's no longer conditional use. If I read this right, it says it now becomes non-conforming. Essentially, it's like a built-in sunset of some kind, right? And I just, see, if you go on to the next page, permitted
Yes.
or conditional use established before the effective date specified in that is classified as prohibited use under the ordinance is deemed a non-conforming use is controlled by the non-conforming use regulations.
Yes.
And I don't know how many conditional uses we have out there, but if I had a conditional use, I wouldn't want to lose that grandfather.
Yep. I understand. I would say this is probably pretty typical to an ordinance change. If you have a conditional use and you then choose to make that not conditional and prohibit it, you would need to make those non-conforming because you're saying that you don't want that use there anymore. So when you guys go to review the use table and conditional use, you should consider that because that is what happens when you change something from conditional use to prohibited. That would be strange if we didn't make them non-conforming.
I'm gonna push back, right? Because what I've always been told by every codes officer is basically you lose, if you don't do something within, and each town, it's a little bit different. If you quit doing that use, whatever it is, and it lays idle for a period of time, then you lose the grandfathering, then it does revert back, right? In this case, the only thing that makes it revert to non-conforming is the fact that we just passed a new ordinance. And so codes officers have always gone back to what was in the code when that project was approved, right? So discuss that with Tom, if you would.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Ron, I may not be understanding. So you're saying, so I'm gonna use the one that we did tonight just as an example. So you guys just approved a conditional use for a service business, which I don't know what it is in the recode right now, but say you
Let's
didn't.
just say, in this code, it can't be done.
Yes, say it's no longer
So
permitted use.
So as soon as this gets passed, that use is non-conforming, and then
Yes.
you're right, it then goes back to the non-conforming
Mhm.
regulations or whatever. But I'm just saying, once we've accepted something and it was done in accordance with what was there, it should be, in my opinion, the way it changes over is through grandfathering, not through the stroke of a pen.
I mean, I think grandfathering and non-conforming in this case is the same.
But they're gonna be able to keep using it.
Yes,
In that same
exactly.
way.
Yes.
You can keep using
They
it.
can keep using it, but they won't be able to do anything else, right?
I mean, I don't think
Use
that's,
of dental arts, remember they came back a few times, right? If that is no longer conditional use, they couldn't have done it
so we
because
have,
it become non-conforming with this. I know it's a nit, but I think that's important to at least the conditional use people that have applied for and been approved for conditional use. It's not the same as retroactive, but in a way, it takes away a right that they had
Granted.
been granted and approved, right? So I would just ask for you guys to discuss this.
yeah, I'm happy to. I guess I'm just wondering, so we have a whole nonconformities chapter. I'm sorry it wasn't included tonight. It's chapter 14. It allows, it lays out what you can do if you are non-conforming use. Yes, I
And the question as far as, can you expand the non-conforming use,
think somewhat.
et cetera, that type of.
Yeah, but
That's the
remember,
situation.
with non-conforming, we always have, if something is non-conforming, you can't make it any more non-conforming, right? And then when you get into shoreland, you have a little bit different,
But it's like gonna be different because that's, I mean, there's a non-conforming building
right?
and there's a non-conforming use.
Yes,
Right.
So if you have a non-conforming use, but it's in a conforming building, you
Right.
could probably modify the building, keep the use.
Yeah.
It's just when you get to the step of either,
Yeah.
I don't know if sale or how that works, but
I might be making too much of it, but
I
can you
just-
check on that?
I can check with Tom. I think that the answer to that, though, is that when you guys look at the use table, you should consider strongly if you want to make any conditional, what is currently a conditional use or permitted use,
It should
not
either-
permitted.
It should either be permitted or not permitted, not conditional. That's what you're saying.
No, I'm not getting into the conditional use one right now,
No, I'm not.
actually. No, I'm not, we'll do it another
I kind of
time.
read into that.
No, I'm really not, I actually don't have an opinion on that right
Everything's
now.
conditional use, right, Scott?
You guys, don't get him started.
No, we're not doing that tonight, look at the schedule. No, my point is just that, you should really consider that carefully, do you wanna put someone through that? Because to me, it wouldn't be fair to say, because someone established it at an earlier date, that is now allowed, but we don't want that use again. That could get into legal issues. So it's either allowed in that area, or it's conditionally allowed, or it's not permitted. And if it existed prior to, and you say it's not permitted, that's when the non-conforming
Right.
provisions come in, which give you some rights, but do kind of say you can't just exist as if nothing happened because the town did vote that they don't want that use allowed there.
But you keep on doing that use, as long as it stays the same. It's only when you give up that use and you then get hit with the provisions of the new ordinance. I've seen that in multiple places, that once that comes in.
I think
It's what the
No,
news.
that's
says.
okay. I don't know that.
Yeah.
The use can be different businesses, right? So I'm thinking of the example tonight. If she moves into that business and then in 5 years, she moves out of that building and another business like hers moves in, are they still allowed?
If she just sells the business and doing the same thing, yeah.
What if it's a different business? What if an architecture firm moves into that building? Is that still allowed or?
No, well, depends what the new code says.
You'd have to look at what the new code is.
Because I guess, yeah, what I'm saying is I
Yeah.
don't think we should. I think it'll be unfair to say, like, if the use of that building, like we agreed to tonight, is appropriate for that location where you have a commercial use on the first floor, residential use above, but then under the recode, if that's not permitted, that's unfair to somebody who wanna own a business in that building, is that?
Well, yeah, but the question becomes whether or not it's a similar type business that is trying to use that building.
Right, and
So-
guys, that's why I asked you to talk to Tom, right?
Right.
Because Tom's more familiar with all the uses than any of us are, right?
Yeah.
So let's
Just an extreme example, that's a commercial use, somebody else wants to move in and have a house of ill repute. Well, that's not allowed under the.
Larry,
Moving on.
move on. So,
So,
no, I don't want
These are the
to,
easy ones.
yeah, no, I don't want to belabor it, right? If you can just talk it
Yep.
through. But what I do want to is compliment this board, because I think that is the smoothest conditional use we've ever done. Mr. Knight.
I kept my mouth shut.
That wasn't directed to you.
Oh, okay.
We usually end up with some type of split board and
Right.
we go on to.
Well, I'm trying to make the motions before Scott started the thing.
All right, anybody,
I
I
have
don't
one.
mean, anybody with questions on this?
I got one little nitpicky one, and it goes back to we're writing the whole code, let's go with calendar days. Row versus row, square feet versus square feet. Do we really need to have both there?
Where is
Down
this?
the table 1-1. I mean,
It's probably
Whatever.
good too, you know, because then it's not unclear. So much of what we do is just making sure that it's clear to as many people as possible. You know,
So I'll make you day, Scott. On square feet, I would add capital S.
There you go.
I would do FT with a 2. That's what I would do, but that's the scientific. And actually I do in meters, so. Yeah.
so I heard make the table much bigger.
Yeah, I like that. Multiple abbreviations and multiple meanings. There you go. All right, anything else on one?
I used to do surveying, so I was in drawings.
All right. Yeah, you're right, Scott. This is the easy one. All right,
This is an easy one.
on number 13, which is administration. I think I had two things. I think they're both real quick. All this stuff I just wanted, and I assume he is, right? But Tom is okay with all that.
Tom has read this code before it ever got to you guys.
And all the violations.
Okay.
Yep.
He's the one that has to go do all this enforcement. It says here
Where are you?
on 13.10, administration.
Yep.
It says the planning board, see chapter 41 of the code of ordinances, right?
Mhm.
So is that getting changed?
No.
Okay. Then Board of Appeals, and again, it's not me, but Are they in 5-year terms and we're on 3-year terms? I'm
You
not
know,
seeing anything
I'm not
wrong with
sure.
that.
I'm
I
not
thought
sure,
they were
Dom.
on 3.
Yeah, that would be, which one is, B?
On B.
Let me check on that. Or, yeah,
5-year staggered terms.
yeah, that's a good point. Let me see if that's a change or not. I will let you guys know.
Yeah, for threes.
Yeah,
They're a little bit.
so that's all I
They
didn't
never
have
meet.
anything else.
They're a bit more special than you guys are. They never meet.
Oh, we were up soon.
So they can go 5 years.
It was good to read though, because I didn't realize that they had, that it was just for conditional use. That they don't have jurisdiction or authority to hear appeals of site plan or subdivision.
No, I don't think they are. I think those go to court.
Or,
Yeah.
no, I thought,
Yeah.
I thought any of those things could go to that, but good to know. Yeah, we have one.
Because I think technically they're the zoning board of appeals. So.
Yeah.
Officially.
Since we brought up dental arts. Just was reading violations, okay?
Do they violate something?
It annoys the hell out of me when I go to the dump and I see the bark roadway
Mhm.
that is in the, I mean, basically they put the parking lot in
Yeah.
without putting a
Has
parking
Tom
lot
seen that?
Tom's aware of it, yes.
in.
Okay.
Yeah, so is
Have you
that
talked to them about it?
I'm not sure if he has
Ask
talked to
him
me
to talk
about
to
that.
them.
is that what like 1322E says? To engage in the use of a building, structure, or land, the use or installation of a sign, blah, blah, blah. Any activity with which a permit or approval has been granted under ordinance and under previous regulations to the town, is anyway inconsistent with the permit or approval of condition imposed by the permit. Like, I mean, obviously it came a couple times, we said you can't have to do, we did say that big parking lot out back,
Mhm.
but now we have I mean, I think someone did a very nice job with the park.
Mhm.
It
I
looks
know.
nice.
I have the same feelings too. I drove past it.
But
Actually, no, Scott, it's fairly recent, right?
the park's recent.
Yeah, all right.
The
That's, I
car's
noticed,
been there.
I noticed that
At the park.
No.
What?
there's bark that goes in front of the house, and there was a whole discussion about that, right? But I was sitting over there. But I thought about that, and I was gonna ask Tom about it, and then I forgot to ask Tom, so, yeah.
I'll check in with Tom.
No,
about that.
I take pictures of things and send them to Tom, and this, he probably hates that, right?
No, if you guys have concerns, that's what you should do is
Right.
let the code officer know.
But I've been on Center Park, and that just pisses me off every time I go out there, where they cut down all the trees in front of it.
There's no any building behind it yet, right?
There's buildings,
Oh, the center park.
yeah. There's no
Not
new
the storage.
building that you're talking
Right.
about, right? But the other side still has, anyway. Yeah, just after the. All right, so are we done with 1 and?
Well,
13?
no, actually, the provision Scott just raised, the 13.20.2E. Just that language that, to me anyway, that says that is in any way inconsistent with such permit. And that just sounds, just to me anyway, just way too loosey-goosey. Use a legal term.
Yep,
That is in
I'm
any
writing
way.
Lucy.
That is, yeah. Thought attorneys like vagueness.
Only when we're trying to litigate.
I was gonna say, if he was on the other side, he'd love this. He wouldn't say anything.
Right.
So you're just saying get rid of in any way, and just say
It's inconsistent.
that
That
is inconsistent.
is inconsistent, I agree.
Anyway,
That's more definitive.
I would actually say it is in violation of such permit,
No, you could do that too.
because when you talk about inconsistencies,
That could be vague
I
too.
think that's very
That
big.
inconsistent, you're right.
Yeah.
okay,
Which brings me back to a question.
Yep.
On interpretations. I'm just curious about this.
is this in article?
It's right before code enforcement officer 13.
Okay, yep, got it.
So the Board of Appeals has the power and duty to interpret. Yes. Can you just explain that? Like, So they interpret it, and then what?
I think it's because they have the power to decide on zoning variances, so at the end of the day, I think it's their decision on this specific chapter, because this is chapter 225 zoning. I think that the site plan and subdivision ordinances probably have something similar for planning board.
Okay, 'cause I'm just, the word interpret is like an understanding or the way I see it versus the way someone else might see it.
Yeah, but I think what, to her point, it's, they're the ones that have the authority to rule on it, right?
Okay.
And interpret how it's written, to say,
Okay.
is it or
Yeah.
isn't it conforming? They're the ones that make that final decision.
I was just curious.
No,
No, thank
Good.
you. Any and all questions are good, and I appreciate when people can help me out with them.
all right,
Yeah, the Board of Appeals generally does have the power of doing variances, stuff like that, to really get more of the general and interpretation of what is intended
well, yeah,
by that.
but they get much less than they used to, right? Because some of the
Yeah.
changes they used to rule on, it was determined they couldn't rule on.
Yeah, well, here it says, of course, going back to conditional uses, they have the power to override us with regard to conditional uses. They have the power, the appeal power.
Unless we get rid of them all.
Oh, the members of the zoning board, why would you do that?
No, that's not what I
Scott's coming
said.
in with a really
Yeah.
interesting proposal for Middle Village.
Well, I did find it that the parking area for the rec department, that it went through the appeal, it got appealed, and then it came right back to the planning board. It was just, to me, I always find that as odd. So the planning board ruled on it.
Oh, one of
It
the
was
top-
appealed, the appeal, right, because at the time, nobody knew, or there wasn't a good ownership understanding of the road. Anyway, all right, so that's those two items.
Usually, the zoning board goes to the board.
Do you have a question? Because we were instructed to tour
Yes,
Article 15,
yes,
so I toured it.
yes.
And I just, general question, the things that just completely struck from definitions
Do
are
you have to
struck
skip,
because.
you have to skip to September 25th?
No, it was in the upfront here.
I think it's just a question. It's not a suggestion, okay.
On June 12th, it said
See where
for,
chapter 15 is.
no, right here, June 12th, for that. So we have a understanding of,
Oh,
I'm gonna dig into the measurements, because those like, was totally off on.
So you have
but-
questions about the ones that are like just straight up struck like.
Yeah,
mobile
they're just
home
not in,
newer?
they're not in there anymore.
I think it's because Tom, bless his heart, took the time to go through, which is why I started having Tom look at this code, which has been great.
and clean it up.
Yes, is he said, these aren't actually in there at all. You're
Yeah.
defining things that aren't mentioned in the code. So that's why I think some of these are struck. Because some of them were existing and then were changed, and some of them were just, I think that they, our consultants have a list of definitions that they use, and some of them made it in that never actually got referenced in the code. If you have a specific one that you'd like me to
No,
turn
it
on,
just,
I
I
can.
mean, the ones that jumped out at me were like affordable housing, agricultural building, transmission tower. Are all
Oh.
cut
Those, okay,
Where are you now?
in 15.
in 15
what?
definitions, so I'm not on there.
I feel like
1520.
affordable housing was removed because like it might have its own section within the code, so it's
Okay, so
probably
it's
not.
defined someplace.
I think
else.
it is potentially.
But now that he's brought it into today's agenda, would you ask Tom to get back to us on that?
Yes, I can.
And tell me that's till September 25th.
And I will say that was the reason, so the reason I had it on tour was because Susan Ray Reeves had said every time I start reading these new documents, I also start with like the glossary, the end, Article 15, so that I know what things are as I read through it. And I said, you know what, that's a good idea. I'll suggest that the planning board do the same thing. But I don't think you guys should be suggesting alterations to it until September when you've reviewed the whole code. And then at that point, you can get back to me, Scott, and say, affordable housing is in there and there's no definition, that's gotta go back. Of course, I can check on that, thank you for bringing it up, but that was kind of the point, was that you would get an idea of it tonight, and then at the end, you would say, hey, I've reviewed the whole code, these things don't make sense, so there's inconsistencies.
The consultants are obviously flat renters. Because they say basement and not cellar.
I'm sorry, it doesn't say down cellar.
And up attic.
So you took the tour too.
Yeah.
Okay,
Just
so we've done 1 and 13. I think the only other discussion is what's this board want to do as far as schedule, right? This right now has us
And I can,
hitting topics. I don't know how big 3, 4, 5, and 11, but to do all those on one night.
can I explain it a little bit? Because I
Yeah.
do have a rationale for this. Just before you guys get terrified. I wanted
Oh, I'm
to,
not terrified, it's just, and
Angry
typically
with
we try
me?
to take a
maybe
night
it's the word.
off during the summer, which just takes us right through the summer.
And this is why it's proposed, because I really did want to discuss it with you guys. We can absolutely push it. 3, 4, and so these were somewhat based on the meatiness, and this one was an early, simple night where there wasn't very much. There will be ones with more meat to them. Articles 3, 4, 5, and 11. Article 11 is floodplain management, which has not changed at all. That has just been copied and pasted. So that is basically, if you guys want to take a quick look at it to make sure there's nothing that looks strange or
Don't
anything.
tour it.
I mean, you are supposed to review
Tour
it.
is the easy one.
Yeah, you are
Review
supposed
is digging into it.
You're supposed to review it, but I can tell you right now that floodplain management, Article 11 has not changed from our current code. So that's one right there that isn't that much. We did not receive many citizen comments on Articles 3, 4, and 5, and that is why I grouped them together. They're the 3 articles that go over zones. So commercial and industrial zones, that's honestly, it's 2 pages. And so I didn't think there would be a huge amount there. I don't think I've received many, if any, comments on that. Article 4 does have one topic for you to discuss, the open space development, which I'll get into that more in my memo and everything. So there's that. And then Article 5, and a lot of Article 4 is taken up with the open space development and some of the struck language around that.
So help us out is on the 24th, Josh, how much application stuff do we have?
June 24th? Yeah, not,
None.
potentially nothing.
Okay, all right, so I think we can stay with your suggestion for the 24th.
Looking for conditional use in there too.
I'm just looking at my calendar, I can make up when I can't be here, and then keep, anyway. So yeah, if you want to do those for the 24th, that's fine. I have a feeling we're gonna, July 10th may be a tough, just because of the time of year and the holiday and everything else.
Do you guys want that to be your
I
one-off?
think maybe take July 10th and not have a meeting.
Who's gonna be messed
that-
up that?
Is that,
July 10th. Ones that didn't make the 24th.
Would it be Emily Street?
And the street would be there.
Ooh, well, we don't know if they'll be ready.
June 24th is a Tuesday, is that right?
Oh,
No.
the street.
it's June 24th is a
Did I,
Thursday.
is it a 26th and I wrote it wrong?
Yeah, it's 26. 26.
Sorry, guys.
Oh, well, 26.
I will send you a new one of these.
Because the 19th is a Thursday.
All right, well, yeah, 14 days from today, it's the 26th.
I'm not perfect, I try.
That's okay, Josh did
The
2024.
24th of July.
I've
Well-
never made that mistake before, ever.
See, I looked
Larry.
at my calendar, and I looked at the 26th and just read 24th.
Right.
Yeah, June 26th. Let's keep June 26th, but I may be in Syracuse.
July 24th, I will be here.
June
What
20th.
if we, it would be hard for us to cancel your first July meeting actually because of development, not this, but because of development.
Yeah.
There is a subdivision plan for the end of Emily Street, which Iris is reviewing, and I, if all goes well, really want her to get the experience of being a planner with you guys and presenting that to you. So I hope you'd be amenable to that. I want her
That's
to
July
end,
10th.
that would be July 10th. I want her to end this internship with,
So is that a big project?
no, it's a 4-lot subdivision.
Okay,
But they,
well, we'll stay with the 10th, right?
but we don't have anything for the 24th, and we can start telling our developers that we're not doing the meeting that night.
On
You
July
guys,
24th.
July,
Yes,
So,
That works great. I can't be here that meeting
I
either,
can't
so.
either.
okay,
So-
July 24.
wait, that's the 24th.
No meeting.
Strike that, 26th.
Meeting in July. 4th.
and then what, I guess what I'd like to propose is when we get out there to say the July 10th meeting, we look at how we're doing, right?
Agreed.
And then set the schedule for some of the later
Okay.
ones, rather than pick a date right now.
Okay.
Is that okay with everybody?
Yeah,
Yeah,
this
I
was-
think a lot depends on what's coming before us for
Right.
hearings, as far as what time do we have for a workshop.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yep, and
Tonight
I,
was good because it was.
Yeah.
Workshop short.
All right. Do we have anything else?
no, I think that's it. Yeah, I like this idea. You guys are good with zones. You'll keep July 10th. And you'll start that with CPIC being here and discussing Articles 2 and 8, because I believe those are the ones you guys have not reviewed yet very much, because those were the
So
center
does it make
zones.
sense? And I don't pretend to know. Does it make sense to do 2 at one meeting and 8 at the other meeting, or 2 and 8 is important to do
I
together?
think that they should be done together because, and I did think about that. 2 is the center zones. That's Topsham Center Zones, the form-based code section
Yeah.
of this, which I don't,
Eight is building design.
8 is building design, which I think you'll have less comments on 8,
Okay.
but you'll need to be aware of it
That's fine.
as you discuss 2. So I think if it naturally ends up where you want to discuss 2 mostly at 1 and then 8 later, you could be considering it a tour, but I kind of combined them because I think they're very inherently linked.
So.
I'm gonna dive deep into building design.
Okay, good, as you should.
You go. So, all right,
Building
so
design only applies to Thompson centers.
Yes,
we would probably pick up then the second meeting on form-based code on the 14th,
yes,
but we can decide that on the 10th.
yes.
Okay.
I think you can see how, because also we can see how the 10th goes, and if you guys are like, wow, we really need to dig into this, we're gonna need 2 more instead of 1 more, we can know that then.
Okay, good.
Yep, I will say, whenever you do Article 6, principal uses, that will be a big night, the use table needs some work, and that came
Well, I
up.
may not be here. Is August 14th or Thursday? Must be.
Yeah.
It's my daughter's birthday, 21st birthday.
She doesn't want to spend that with you, Larry.
Being there so all summer, yeah, she probably does.
No, I'm sorry, I was just teasing you. I think
That's
yes.
very tough. Not you, him.
I was obviously not thoughtful there. What do I know? Yes, let's get back to it then. I will say, whenever you do Article 6, principal uses, I expect you'll need to get into that one. There's some comments on Article 7. I don't expect it to be quite so big. And then obviously conditional use and nonconformities is something that the board needs to discuss. So just as you look forward to it, those are the ones I anticipate requiring, attention and time
Okay,
and conversations.
all right, anything else? Anyone? All right, seeing none.